Indian Ocean, 2037. The night is silent until it isn't. A fleet of Chinese destroyers cuts through the waves under the cover of darkness, their decks glowing with the cold light of radar screens. Above them, a Saudi reconnaissance drone circles high, relaying data in real time to a new joint command center in Riyadh. For months, the world has watched tensions rise. Oil disputes, sanctions, cyber attacks. But tonight, something irreversible begins. At 02:02 GMT, satellites over the Indian Ocean detect hundreds of heat signatures moving west, hypersonic missiles streaking toward US bases in Bahrain, Qatar, and Diego Garcia. Seconds later, the first explosions bloom, like suns in the dark. The Sino-Arab Defense Initiative, once dismissed as an impossible coalition, has just declared war on the West. Phase 1, the alliance born of fire. It didn't happen overnight. After years of US pressure, trade wars, and sanctions, Beijing turned inward and eastward. The Middle East, fractured and exhausted from decades of proxy wars, found in China something America never offered: unconditional partnership. It started quietly: energy deals, infrastructure projects, tech transfers. But when the US restricted access to semiconductors and dollar networks, China and the Gulf states struck back. The deal was called the Silk Shield Pact, a 30-year military and economic alliance between China, Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE, and Egypt. Its goals were simple. 1. Control global energy markets. 2. Protect trade routes from Asia to Africa. 3. End Western dominance of global security. By 2035, the pact controlled 70% of the world's proven oil reserves, half of rare earth exports, and a navy powerful enough to challenge the US in 2 oceans. Western analysts laughed. Until the first joint military exercise, Operation Sand Dragon, saw Chinese aircraft carriers dock in Dubai, Iranian hypersonic batteries deployed in Oman, and Saudi stealth bombers taking off with Chinese pilots on board. The message was unmistakable. The world order had changed. Phase 2, the trigger. December 2036, a US Navy destroyer intercepts a Chinese tanker near the Strait of Hormuz, claiming it violated sanctions on Iranian oil. In response, the new Sino-Arab coalition issues a joint ultimatum: lift all restrictions or lose access to Middle Eastern energy. Washington refuses. Within days, oil prices skyrocket past $300 a barrel. Inflation spikes. American cities face rolling blackouts. The global economy teeters. That's when Beijing makes its move. Under the codename Operation Eastern Dusk, China launches a coordinated cyber offensive. Power grids flicker in California. Stock exchanges in New York and London halt trading for the first time since 9/11. And then, the missiles fly. Phase 3, the first strike Persian Gulf, 04 Lautes, local time. US bases in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Qatar are hit simultaneously. Advanced DF-27 hypersonic missiles launched from western China arc over the Himalayas and descend at Mach 12. American defenses never see them coming. Diego Garcia, the island fortress of US power projection, takes a direct hit. Half the airfield vanishes in a cloud of fire. Within hours, Chinese aircraft carriers Shandong and Fujian sail through the Malacca Strait, escorted by Saudi and Iranian destroyers. Together, they form the largest non-Western fleet in history, the Red Crescent Armada. The world wakes up to a nightmare. US forces in the Middle East crippled. The Fifth Fleet in chaos. The oil trade seized by the alliance. By morning, global markets crash. The president addresses the nation. We are facing a new kind of enemy, united, coordinated, and determined to end our leadership of the free world. Phase 4, the energy war. The alliance knows where America is weakest: energy. With coordinated embargoes, Saudi Arabia and Iran cut oil exports to the West, redirecting them to China and allied Asian nations. Tankers escorted by Chinese warships steam toward Shanghai, while US allies in Europe scramble for alternatives. Gas prices in the US hit $15 per gallon. Power grids strain under rationing. Meanwhile, in Washington, Pentagon analysts map a grim reality: The US military machine, built on oil, can't fight a global war without it. The alliance broadcasts a simple message. The age of Western control is over. The world's resources will serve all, not one empire. Propaganda floods the internet. Hackers take over American social media feeds, showing footage of destroyed bases and alliance fleets parading through the Indian Ocean. The psychological war has begun. Phase 5. The Pacific ignites South China Sea, 2037. U.S. carrier groups move into position. The USS Ronald Reagan, USS Nimitz, and USS Enterprise II. Their mission: contain Chinese expansion and protect remaining allies, Japan, the Philippines, and Australia. But the new alliance is ready. Iranian-made long-range drones launched from converted oil rigs swarm the skies. Saudi satellites feed targeting data to Chinese missile cruisers. In a single night, the Nimitz is forced to retreat, its escorts shredded by hypersonic strikes. The message from Beijing is clear. The Pacific belongs to Asia. As the battle rages at sea, another front opens: space. China's Sky Spear anti-satellite weapons disable half of the Pentagon's GPS and communication satellites. US missiles lose guidance. Jets lose coordination. For the first time in modern history, the American war machine fights blind. Phase 6. The battle for influence. While the US fights to regain control, the alliance expands its reach. Egypt and Turkey close the Suez Canal to Western shipping. Africa's largest economies sign trade deals with Beijing. Pakistan opens its ports to Chinese submarines. In Europe, protests erupt as energy shortages plunge cities into darkness. NATO, fractured and demoralized, struggles to respond. Some nations quietly negotiate with Beijing to secure oil. The White House faces impossible choices: defend allies or stabilize the homeland. A divided Congress calls for isolation. America First becomes more than a slogan. It's survival policy. Meanwhile, Beijing and Riyadh announce the formation of a new global currency backed by gold and oil, the petro-yuan. Within months, half of Africa and Asia adopt it for trade. The US dollar, once untouchable, begins to fall. Phase 7. The counterstrike. But America isn't out yet. From Guam to Alaska, the US rebuilds. Advanced AI-driven drones enter the fight. The US Cyber Command unleashes Project Reclaimer, a digital strike that shuts down power grids across coastal China and cripples the Shanghai Stock Exchange. At the same time, US submarines slip into the Arabian Sea, targeting alliance oil convoys. Explosions ripple across the water as tankers go up in flames. Oil prices skyrocket again, but this time it hurts the alliance more than America. In retaliation, China launches Operation Dragon's Wrath, a direct attack on Guam and Okinawa. For the first time since World War II, American soil in the Pacific is bombed. Thousands perish. The US declares a global state of war. Phase 8. The New World War. By mid-2038, it's official. World War III has begun, not East versus West, but energy versus empire. The front lines stretch across oceans. The Pacific Theater, US versus China. The Arabian Front, US and India versus Iran and Saudi Arabia. The Cyber Front, global systems collapsing under constant attack. Cities darken, supply chains crumble. Airliners vanish mid-flight as GPS networks fail. But amid the chaos, something unexpected happens. Arab populations begin questioning the cost of this super-alliance. Food shortages, inflation, and devastation fuel unrest. In Tehran and Riyadh, protests swell. The unity that terrified the world begins to crack. Phase 9. The Turning Point. Late 2038, US intelligence discovers a rift inside the alliance. Saudi Arabia, fearful of nuclear escalation, opens secret back channels with Washington. In exchange for security guarantees, it agrees to withdraw support from Beijing. Without Saudi oil, the alliance's economic engine sputters. Sensing weakness, the US and allies launch Operation Phoenix Shield, a global offensive combining cyber warfare, precision strikes, and naval blockades. Chinese warships trapped in the Indian Ocean are hunted down one by one. Iranian oil fields burn. For the first time in the war, the red tide recedes. Phase 10. The fall of the alliance 2039. Beijing stands isolated. The Middle East fractures. Iran faces rebellion. The Gulf states turn inward to rebuild. The US regains control of key trade routes and energy corridors. In a final act of defiance, China detonates an EMP weapon over the Pacific, disabling hundreds of satellites. But it's too late. The world, exhausted and broken, demands peace. In Geneva, the Treaty of Nations ends the war after 2 years of devastation. The outcome: the US survives, but weakened. China loses half its economy. The Middle East, once united, splinters again. The global order is forever changed. Epilogue: The lesson of the Silk Shield. In the ashes of war, one truth becomes clear: power built on fear cannot last. The Sino-Arab Super-Alliance burned bright, and briefly. Its strength lay in unity, but its downfall came from ambition. The nations that tried to break the old world only ended up rebuilding it stronger. America, though scarred, learns a lesson it once taught others. Alliances matter, but trust matters more. And somewhere in the quiet deserts of Arabia, new oil rigs rise under new flags. Not Chinese, not American, but shared. Because in the end, history always circles back to the same point. Every empire falls. Every alliance fades. But humanity, it always rebuilds.